Here's a quick intro, skip to this time code if you want to get to the main interview. Back in December, I was working on an unrelated documentary project, and I interviewed musicians. One of them was Michael Scotto of hardcore band Thrull. He was more than happy to be interviewed. He was very nice, very well spoken, very insightful, very smart. Since it had been a while since that project, I thought I'd take the interview footage and edit it and put it on the channel, as well as being in celebration of their EP that came out recently. Give it a listen. Show this band some love. I will link that and their YouTube channel in the description below. Also, if you hear another voice in the background, that was someone who was helping me out during this project. Out of the respect for their privacy, I will not disclose who it is. Hope you all enjoy the interview.
Make some noise.
Let us begin.
Let us begin.
Alright. So, what inspired you to be a musician?
It was definitely kind of like just something that happened. I, as a kid, I actually talked to my mom about this recently, and it was kind of like one of those like, oh wow, like I forgot about that. I used to like have this little tiny like child-sized rake that I would play a fake like air guitar in front of my mirror with. So it was definitely one of those things that like, yeah, it just kind of happened. I got my first guitar when I was like 10, and it collected dust for a really long time because I didn't really have anybody to help me learn it. And then by like 13, I picked it up again, and I just never put it down,
Yeah, well, if I may ask, what kind of guitar was it?
Oh God, it was a piece of crap. It exists somewhere. I think it's at my parents' house. It was I think New York Pro was the name of the company. It was not good. It was like $100 acoustic guitar, and ended up getting destroyed by a friend of mine. Basically, the bone on it is now unusable. The cost of replacing it would just be like not worth it.
You mean the nut?
Yeah, well, essentially, yeah. And it's a little bit of a piece of crap now, and so it will remain as a kind of like a item from years past. But yeah, that was what really did it, was just kind of picking it up. And once I learned like what tabs were, and I could sit at a computer and just be like, okay, here's my favorite song, I want to learn how to play it, and I could just do that. It like, to me, that was just like infinite fun.
How did the guitar get destroyed?
So a friend of mine decided that the action, which is where the strings sit over the frets, was too high while he was borrowing it, and so he decided to file down the bridge, the bone. It's usually like tusk or something, but it was a crappy guitar, so it was probably plastic. But like the on an acoustic guitar, that bridge, he filed it down so that he could make the action lower, and because he was under the influence, he filed it down much too low. And so then the guitar just sounded horrible. I mean, it just buzzed constantly.
Just hearing that, it just sounds like that. Like I think you probably mean the nut, like right where the headstock is.
No. It was at the bottom. It was at the bridge. Yeah. He filed.
How do you do that to a bridge?
It was a very stupid move on his part.
Yeah, though I do relate with the tabs things. I'm the same way with my bass, and that or if like the mix is clear in a recording where you can hear either the guitar parts or the bass lines by ear and something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, what would you say is like the first style of music that you like? What would you say like? How do I put it?
It was Green Day. It was Green Day, without question. I wanted to be Billy Joe Armstrong as a kid, like desperately. And I'll listen to old Green Day songs, and it kind of has that nostalgia factor. But still, to this day, that is like there's old stuff that I really like by them, but I don't follow Green Day like I once did. But like from there, that type of angsty punk kind of led me to like, again, like emo, like My Chemical Romance and The Used and like that kind of stuff, which was mainstream kind of version of that same sort of thing with a little bit more edge to it. And and that was kind of where I stuck. It kind of led me to heavy music, which is where, I am now.
Yeah, so that's how you discovered your style.
Certainly, I would say that, Thrull is an amalgamation of all of those influences over the years. It's just, the spazzy music and the punk music and the more soulful stuff and just this, like, all of the things that I think are the most weird that I've heard over the years in music. I just try to, like, do all of that. And I think that's kind of like a common, like, uniting force for all of us. We just want to be very, off the wall and just different.
I would say, what made you want to, what got you into, heavier music and, by extension, hardcore or just heavy music in general?
That's a good question. Really the energy more than anything else. It was an acquired taste. There was a lot of listening to bands that I now love and being kind of being I don't know how I feel about this. And then listening to them more, after I'd hear something else and I'd be like, wow, it's really heavy, it's really cool. And then I'd go back and listen to these other bands that I hadn't really given as much of a chance, and I'd be like, oh my God, all of this is so good, it kind of as you're exposed to new things and as you see bands do things that are impressive, and it changes your taste, and then you go back and you'll listen over. I mean, in a lot of ways it was my friends. I mean, Carrie I've known for 15 years, my roommate, since when I was in 8th grade, and he's a couple years older than me, so he was in high school at the time, and him and his brother were always at the cutting edge of what albums were coming out, what had gotten leaked. I remember sitting on the bus in freshman year of high school and listening to Colors by Between the Buried and Me, through somebody's iPod headphone, and being this is incredible. This is one of the wildest things I've ever heard in my life. And so, just many of those moments over the years. I will never consider myself to be a crazy, I'm not a shredder, man. I don't play guitar super deftly or well, but something clicked in me where I was just I just want to play guitar as hard as I can and yell as loud as I can. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I could relate that. Especially, I remember hearing heavier music, and I remember my ears were not used to that. Though as time went on, I'm trying to remember for myself. I think it was maybe Slipknot and all that. Because I remember hearing Pantera when I was a teenager and didn't like it, and then went back.
Yeah, it's interesting that that's a parallel I see with a lot of people, like Justin and who, I mean, especially Justin, grew up on older metal, and I didn't. I did my parents, they were listening to Fleetwood Mac and ZZ Top and stuff like that. It was they liked their music, and that was what I listened to, and I loved that stuff. I still I listened to Sade constantly, and that's something my mom was always listening to, and but I wasn't really exposed to Slipknot and Pantera and stuff like that until I was already into heavy music. It's weird to think about that I had to go back and catch up, because people would be talking about these bands and being oh yeah, I was listening to them in high school, and I was I fucking wasn't.
I didn't get into them until early college.
Yeah.
I think the first one I remember hearing as a kid was Disturbed.
Oh yeah, I mean, that is true. I will say that as a kid, I certainly had an affinity for System of a Down. Just because, again, it was mainstream. It was accessible. I could watch MTV and see a System of a Down music video and be wow, this is really cool. Another thing, too, that occurs to me just by mentioning MTV, Fuse. I don't know if you're familiar at all with Fuse. It used to be a channel. It was usually on either local or satellite. And they were very much centered on underground-ish alternative music. And they were a huge conduit to me for finding bands that I would have never otherwise been exposed to. Circus Survive, for example. There was an ad on Fuse about their upcoming record, and now my band Letters to Part is that's our biggest influence without question is Circus Survive. So yeah, it's just interesting how there's all these all these different routes that we get exposed to things and that we get influences from.
This is your other band.
Yeah, so I'm in a kind of ambient post-hardcore type of band called Letters to Part. We've got a couple records out. We're definitely a little bit more established than Thrull is. It's good fun. Both bands I'm really, I love and I'm very passionate about. Letters to Part just did a tour on the East Coast a couple months ago, which was good fun. We don't really play as many shows. We're not necessarily as active as Thrull is right now. So
it's always interesting, when you discover. I know. Exactly. This is not one of the questions. I'm just thinking now off the top of my head. But I remember when getting into that stuff and then learning about some underground acts that some of the big names got into and listening to that.
Yeah.
I mentioned Slipknot earlier. I remember seeing an interview with Corey Taylor. We talked about one of his favorite bands was a band named Acid Bath.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah, and I feel like that was my start of the point of no return. In terms of just finding very strange, not even strange, but just obscure underground music. I wonder if you've ever had something similar.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that's really cool about having been involved in the music, the local music scene for, now going on 10 plus years, especially in Orlando. But even before that, when I was 15 and 16, I was driving down to Miami from Coral Springs to play local shows, with dudes who were way fucking older than me. And nowadays when a lot of the times when I go to either play a show or go to a show, because I more often than not I really do prescribe to the kind of dogma that is, if you're gonna play local music and you want people to support you, you have to support local music. You have to do that. You have to go out there and spend your money and pay attention to these bands and mingle and be friends with those people, because those are the people that are going to support you back, and not to mention that I find some of the most incredible music doing it that way. But a really good example of this that has been all preamble to getting there is that we once played a show, my old band, with a band called The Body, which I had, at that point was a big fan. I found them similarly, where I my other band at the time had played with Full of Hell, and they had been touring on a record that they had released with The Body, and I was like, wow, I've never heard of this band before. I want to check them out. I was immediately blown away by their music, really excited to play with them. But they were touring with, at the time, little-known artist named Lingua Ignota, which she is now one of the most prolific operatic noise artists, kind of classical artists that exists in the genre right now. And it's really been exciting to see her metamorphosis, because I watched her in a room with 20 kids, tops, all dumbfounded, glued to the floor, blown away by her performance. And then months later, she signed to Sargent House Records, released her record Caligula, which is still to this day her magnum opus, and exploded. Started selling out Le Poisson Rouge and all these crazy huge ballroom style venues. The guy, my buddy who works at Conduit, or who owns Conduit, Pete, has tried to book her here umpteen times. She requires you to bring in a grand piano for her. That's an immense undertaking. And as much as we'd love to have her here, it's she blew up. She exploded. And it's so great to see. And I consider her a friend of mine. We're still mutuals on social media and stuff. And I'm so proud of her and all of her growth and all that she's done. And yeah, so that still to this day, I will never forget that. That was 5 years ago. And I will never forget that experience of getting to see her play in such a interesting, small setting and then explode, become this huge artist after that.
Yeah, I heard about Lingua Ignota, and well, it's not my thing. That I still have respect for.
It's very weird. It's very. There are a lot of people who say it is not their thing, and to me, it's it's deeply personal music. It's very much for like solo listening, and there's just something about it. There's something about her vision that resonates deeply with me. And yeah, that was without a doubt one of the coolest shows I've ever played.
It does make me speculate if she were to play here. She probably, I don't know if Conduit would be able to handle it.
Oh, certainly not. No.
Maybe
It would have to be a much bigger venue, but honest, I'll be 100% real with you, man. I don't know how it would do here. I don't, as incredible of an artist as I think she is, that kind of dovetails to a point that I don't think there's any reason that the Body Lingua Ignota show that we played in 2018 should have been as empty as it was. It was, to me, that was an incredible show. But you never know. You just don't know. You never know what in Orlando or anywhere is really going to pop off. Le Poisson Rouge is in New York. You know, like you play big venues in big cities, and those shows sell out because big cities, you're going to attract a lot of people to come there. But somewhere like here, it's you know, it comes and it goes. Like the Crowbar show went great. The Gel show we played recently at Conduit was amazing. We're going to continue to play shows that you know are of varying degrees of packed or not packed or what have you. But I will say that I'm really grateful for you know the support you know here. There's a lot of people that are just hungry for local music here, and I think that I don't know, things like this and things like just general like brick and mortar kind of promotion where people are going out and flyering and spreading the words about things. I mean, I have so many friends who like hit me up later and said, you know, oh my God, I can't believe that show happened. I can't believe that I didn't know that show happened. And it's like, well, that's the reason why we, you know, I haven't shut up about any of the shows that I'm playing over the last few months, or you know, we go out and we post up flyers and stuff like that. It's like we want to make sure that everybody who wants to be somewhere has the opportunity to.
Yeah, not on the list here.
Sure.
I'm curious, like, because I remember having this one discussion because I know, because we were comparing it, because me and my were comparing it to like Plaza Live, which has a lot of history.
Sure.
How long has Conduit been around?
So Conduit has only really existed as Conduit for like basically within the last year, but the Haven has been there for years, you know, over a decade. I played, impossible to count how many shows at the Haven. A bunch of them Pete's when he was just booking shows there. A bunch of them sold out and real fun, and I loved that. But to be honest with you, I did not like the Haven at all. And so now that Conduit is Conduit and it's like my favorite venue in Orlando, it definitely says something about how much better it is now. It's just it's welcoming. It's a nice place to be.
Yeah, I heard like how like the bar was like near the entrance and all that. And
there was also smoking inside, which, based on our earlier conversation, I know it's not something you would enjoy at all. And I, at the time, was a cigarette smoker, and I hated it. I couldn't stand it. I never took advantage of it. I spent much of my time outside because of how much I hated it, because it just, you know, you got hair, man. Your hair's going to stink of it all day. And I don't know. It just sucks. But, yeah, and that's another great thing about it, man. I feel like that hasn't affected Conduit. I walk in, it doesn't smell like cigarette smoke. It's nice.
Yeah, it's all outside.
Yeah, 100%.
I remember my first Conduit show, which was this year, was the Cynic show.
Oh, sure.
That was a magical experience. There's
Absolutely
something beautiful about how intimate.
Oh yeah,
it was.
Absolutely, and what a performance! I mean, they are really formidable musicians.
Yeah.
I'm glad they put that banner up behind the soundboard. Yeah. It always kind of sits there and looks over Darren.
Yeah. A symbol from what could be considered like local legends.
Absolutely.
So now we got that kind of background. It's making me wonder how did Thrull get started?
So Thrull kind of grew from the bones of a band that all three of us were in, kind of just up to the pandemic, basically, called Flying Limbs. And so I played second guitar, Justin on bass, Julio on drums, and then our friends Glenn and Summer on guitar and vocals. around the pandemic, it just kind of, like most bands, we couldn't play music, we couldn't really get together, so it just kind of fell apart, just broke up. I almost immediately tried to get together with any of them to play music because I was just like losing it. And then, because of the pandemic and just in general, it didn't really work out for a while. And then Justin and I got together with a mutual friend and jammed once or twice. That kind of fell apart a little bit, but we did end up jamming one of the songs that became the song Hell Diagram, which we still play. And then shortly thereafter, again, kind of things fizzled out, and then Julio hit me up, asked if I wanted to get together. We started consistently, pretty much, every week getting together. And when the conversation opened up about who was going to join, it was Justin. It didn't really make sense for anyone else to be the person. And then we immediately, once we decided that all three of us were going to do vocals, and that was it. That we were just going to be the three-piece with three vocalists for at least for the foreseeable future. Maybe we'll add another instrumentalist at some point, but I think we're really happy with how lean we run. It's nice to just have three members.
I remember when I saw you guys at Plaza, I loved just the vocal chemistry combined with the instrumental chemistry.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we've all been lead vocalists in one or another band over the years. Julio fronted a band called Witchbender. Justin did vocals for a couple of bands, Ad Nauseum and Burn to Learn. Just heavy grind kind of bands around here. Witchbender kind of more on the punk spectrum. In fact, I actually I wasn't a permanent member. I was kind of Witchbender kind of at one point moved toward this collective approach where it was just any of our friends could be a member. So I played sax with them at a show, filled in on guitar a couple times. So yeah, it was, to answer your question in a very roundabout way, we all knew each other very well. We'd all played with each other a bunch, so it just made sense.
Basically, friends before you were bandmates.
100%.
And bandmates before you were bandmates.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we were still friends, throughout all that time, even after Flying Limbs had kind of ceased to be, we all continued to be friends. And we all continued to want to make music, and so I think that's why we kind of came back together.
Just for historical context, Flying Limbs was the predecessor.
Exactly, that was the band that the three of us were in before Thrull, correct, yeah.
And also just to apply faces to names, who is who plays bass?
So Julio plays drums and Justin plays bass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I love you had your hardcore kind of style vocals, and he had the death metal growls.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Julio too, his are more kind of shouts, punk kind of vocals. And yeah, we all kind of have different energy, different feel as far as our vocal delivery. And I think I mentioned to you as well when we were at Conduit that we divide the vocal writing duties by song, by person. So I'll write all the lyrics for a song, Julio will write all the lyrics for a song, Justin will write all the lyrics for the song, and then we'll sit down with them together and we'll split them up for performance duties. So we'll get to not only perform each other's lyrics, but also get to hear each other perform our lyrics, which is something that's really unique to this band. I've never been in a scenario where I was getting to write lyrics for myself and my bandmates and getting to interpret their lyrics for myself, if that makes sense. It's been really fun.
As opposed to you being a vessel.
Or you just writing all your own lyrics. That's usually if you're doing vocals in a band, you're writing everything that you're saying in most cases, unless if you're doing some backup vocals, you'll be singing the ones that the lead vocalist wrote. But the fact that it's just this collaborative effort and we're all doing it together is just, it's really fun. It's nice.
Yeah, because I know there's the cases where some singers don't write lyrics, and like I said, they're a vessel for
either
the guitarist or the bass player or the drummer who writes the lyrics.
Yeah.
I think I guess probably just for I think you indirectly answered one of my questions.
Sure.
I might well just ask just for some more clarity. How does it feel to be part of this local music scene?
It's one of the most enriching parts of my life, without question, man. I mean, I don't like Florida. I don't like Orlando. mainly because of the climate. It's the main reason why I can't stand it here, both political and like weather. But like I'm from New Jersey. I run very, very hot down here. I'm always sweating. And so like I pretty desperately want to move like to somewhere with a little bit more, cool of a climate. But I don't know how I would deal with not having the close insulated community of musicians, local musicians that I have, not just in Orlando, but like all across the Southeast, man. Like I've went to Fest in Gainesville the last 2 years, and I don't think I will ever skip it again, because like every time I get to go, it's just all of my friends, like everybody who I've played shows with in the Southeast for the last 10 something years, they all congregate in Gainesville for a weekend, and I just get to hang out with all of them, and it's a really, really nice experience. It's good to be a part of, and yeah, I know that if I were to move somewhere else, depending on where I moved, I would very likely already have friends there. I would make new friends and become engrossed in that music scene in the same way, and and in different ways. But it's one of my favorite things about living here is having the access to music and to my friends who play music, and to just get to be around them and watch them grow and watch their art grow. I could go on and on and on about how much talent there is in Central Florida and the Southeast, man. I could just sit here all day talking about bands, ad nauseum.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of curious to know, like, because you have like the post-hardcore with what's the name of the band?
Letters to Part.
Letters to Part.
It's not an easy name to remember. I don't blame you.
And the kind of like hardcore, almost like I classify Thrull as like crossover at times.
Yeah. I consider us to be, like I said, kind of an amalgamation of genres. There's grind, there's thrash, there's doom at times, there's punk, there's obviously hardcore and metal. We, like I said, I mean, that's the thing, we zigzag. We always want to be like jumping between vibes, and I always want to make it, like, if we have a really good riff, I want to make it short, because I want to make people be like, damn, I wish that riff was longer, wish I got to vibe to it more.
Maybe want to just suggest to you Carnivore, because they're kind of like that speed metal thrash.
I'll definitely check them out.
Doomy.
Just from your earlier talk about it, and the fact that he came to the Crowbar show, he must have decent taste.
Yeah. When the interview's over, I'm sure we'll talk about that more.
Sure.
Though, I wonder, would you ever like pursue any other styles of music?
Oh yeah, I mean, the main so in Letters to Part I play bass. The main reason I picked up bass was because I played jazz bass in high school, and I still love jazz. And just funk and all the like genres that just center around groove, and like just the improvisational aspects of jazz are incredible to me. For a lot of my high school time, I was just doing music theory classes and, sitting in my, jazz at that time. I mean, it was like big band jazz basically, but like getting to improvise. All of my sheet music was just the name of a chord and slashes, and it was just like you follow the drummer and you do whatever, and it was so much fun just be able to sit there and be like, all right, this is my walking bass line, this is what I'm going to do for this song. And then I'd listen to other performances of the songs to get inspiration from other bassists over the years, but just the fact that like I was going to high school and getting to do that was huge. It changed my life as far as being a musician is concerned. So yeah, I love that. Like for me, it's about it sticking out. Like if music sounds different to me than other music, chances are 9 times out of 10 I'm going to be like, this is cool, this is different. It doesn't sound like what I'm like, top 40 or like whatever I'm listening to whenever I'm out and about, where I hear something that it actually really catches my ear. I'd love to be, I don't know if you've ever heard of the band Bad Bad Not Good. They're like a instrumental kind of hip hop jazz group. really, really incredible. I'd love to do something like that where I'm just sitting there, just kind of like chilling back, playing like jazz, hip hop, kind of like walking bass lines and just chilling. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, but like kind of like a jazz fusion. It's
Yeah.
Like, this like hip hop.
Yeah. Well, they did a whole record of beats for Ghostface Killah. Like Ghostface Killah released a record where the entire time his beats are bad, not good. Yeah, it's incredible.
What do you think about like the industry, how the industry works these days?
Sure. When we were talking about this before we started, you kind of interestingly hit the nail on the head, because there's a lot of opportunity now, and that's great. There's also a lot more activity. There's a lot more people vying for that opportunity. There's a lot more entrenchment in the industry. You look at somebody like Spotify. I mean, like I posted my Wrapped this year, like I do every year, and it's all the bands that I listen to, yada, yada, yada. Those bands made a pittance off of my listening to them this year on Spotify. Indebatable. There's no world where those bands are getting paid enough from Spotify for their streams. Or any streaming service, in my opinion. You know, you look at Apple Music and all the other ones. In comparison, I think YouTube probably does the best. But as a platform, it's not as commonplace, and like it. You find that either way, that isn't a way to support bands. Unfortunately, you support bands by going out and buying their merchandise, by supporting them at their shows, by even just spreading the word about them makes a big difference. And I don't know that in no way, shape, or form am I complaining about the way that people consume music. You know, no ethical consumption under capitalism, my friends. Like, get it how you live, you know? But, like, I think that it's important to highlight that the best way to support people is by showing up. You got to show up, you know? And that doesn't mean you have to show up every time. That doesn't mean you have to show up when you aren't feeling it or whatever. But if you feel like, this band is playing a show tonight, I'd like to go see them, but I don't want to go alone or this or that. Like, bands love to see like people come out to see them and like talk to them. Like, I think it wasn't the Crowbar show, it was the Portrayal of Guilt show. This guy he was visiting Orlando from Canada, and he had come to the show to see Portrayal of Guilt, I'm sure. And right after we played, he came right up to the merch table. Was the first one there. He bought a shirt immediately. He was like, "You guys are awesome. I'm from freaking Canada." And I was like, "Oh my God, like, thank you for coming." And he was like, "Yeah, I'm here visiting, but I really enjoyed your guys' set. You know, I'd love to hear some music. If you have any recordings or anything." We had that whole conversation. But this guy bought a shirt from us to pack into his suitcase and fly back to Canada with. And it was just like such a nice gesture, man. And yeah, I think that there are more and more people, as people get informed and as people just kind of, steep themselves in what it is to be a local musician and what it is to be part of the music scene. There are more and more people who are showing up, who are actively looking for ways to support the musicians they care about. And God, like, Gen Z is a huge part of that, man. Like, I go to shows with young bands and freaking packed houses every single time. All these kids that just want to be a part of local music. And I think that's really cool. Other than that, truthfully, it's a fucking shit show. Like, it is a very, very predatory industry. The further up you get from the bottom, local bands, local bookers, local TMs, local managers, those are the people that are going to try to help a band because they care about them. In most cases, most labels, a lot of people are very predatory out there. And that's not to say that all of them are. You turn around, you look at artist-owned, ran labels like your Death Wishes, your Sargent House, Get Better Records. We're playing their Here's show tonight. Ipecac is another perfect example of that. Iodine, Skeletal Lightning, God, like there are. I could sit here and talk all day about people who I would love to work with, who are just such incredible labels, who treat their artists well, who treat my friends well, and that's what matters, man. Like, when somebody has the resources to get people more listeners when they really deserve it, and the proof shows up in the pudding. You know, you see these bands start to blow up because they have the right. I mean, look at bands like Pool Kids is a perfect example. You know, like those are all local Florida like scene heroes who got on Skeletal Lightning, which is not a huge label by any stretch of the imagination, but Skeletal Lightning believed in them, and they kept pushing them, and now they're on these crazy national tours. They're constantly, you know, they just played a run of shows with Sunny Day Real Estate. Like, that's nuts, you know, and it's, yeah, I think that for as much of it is a crapshoot, in 90 to 80% of the cases, there are those diamonds in the rough where there are labels and managers and people out there who really, really care about the people that they're working with. And I mean, specifically in Orlando, you've got Marshall Rones, you've got Peter from Conduit and Indoxa. You've got at Beecham and the Social, they've got Kate Clodfelter out there bringing incredible shows to Orlando. Shows that I would never imagine getting to see in an Orlando area venue, from anything from stadium shows to you know, big ballroom shows. And it's like, yeah, those are the people that in my opinion are working hard in a lot of cases in thankless jobs. You know, like nobody gives a shit about who made the artist who you really wanted to see come to town. Nobody gives a shit about who like made all of that shit happen. And being a local musician playing those shows, you get to see that. You get to get a little bit more of a peek under the cover just by becoming friends with these people and talking to them and understanding what they're doing and what they're going through. And in many, I mean, I've stage managed for Marshall umpteen times. I work at Conduit and work shows for Peter all the time. And so, yeah, you get to kind of see how much work goes into it. And I mean, it's not that, you know, they're getting paid for what they do. They're definitely making money. But I thank those people a lot. I really think that everybody who's willing to take a chance and put effort and oomph behind an artist that they believe in and that they care about as people or as musicians, they're the only reason why we can keep doing this, man. Like there's not much to do without a foothold, you know?
Yeah, I think you indirectly answered my other question.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. It was actually, it was like, how do you feel like how much easier it is for independent artists, and actually, it was a bit indirect. I might as well ask.
Yeah, please.
Just for you to get more specifics from you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel like about how much easier it is like through the you kind of answered this indirectly, like how like independent artists, like you can like how independent artists are able to like post their own works, like whether it be like YouTube or
any social media, yeah,
Bandcamp or SoundCloud, etc.
Sure.
Yeah.
There are a lot of that is something the internet age and technology and social media have done so much to make it easier to get organic reach. Like, I mean, now it's TikTok. You know, it's like, it's lately, it was, you know, we as adults, like, do not enjoy TikTok, but I have friends who have had to train themselves to develop a TikTok presence for their bands because that is the best way to get reach, period. And it's like, you try to put your fingers in as many different pies as you can. You know, you want to reach out and do as many, like try to do as many things as you possibly can, because the idea is that one of them will stick. The idea is that maybe not one of them, but all of them will kind of build up to something better, where you have this presence and you have this kind of consistent influx of people. God, Flagman is a local Orlando band. They're incredible. They got something like 1 million listeners on Spotify last year, or 1 million listens. And it's like, that's awesome. That's really, that is, they're not putting money behind advertisement. They are organically creating content. They're playing shows out. They're, you know, Marshall is managing them, so they are under good management, and they're just doing their best they can to organically reach out. And it's like, it's working for them. And they're a fucking Primus Mr. Bungle worship band. Like, they're not like the most radio friendly thing on the planet, but people fucking love it. They're like, this is goofy and it's cool and it's weird. And, you know, the proof is in the pudding, man. Like, you get to see, and that's why Spotify Wrapped thing is kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because you look at that and you're like, wow, how much money did you guys make over that million listens? Yeah, like a couple $100 from that, buddy. But like at the end of the day, it's indicative of more than that, right? The statistic only tells so much of the story. And yeah, I think that, like I said, it's a blessing and a curse. There's so many more tools at our disposal now than by such a wide margin than when I started. You know, the only way we got our music out when I was in a band when I was 15 was posting it on blogs and stuff like, but you know, at the same time, like I said, it's a bigger pool. There's more fish and everyone's vying for that attention. So you have to do something to set yourselves apart. Which easier said than done for some people.
Yeah. Actually, now I think that you actually get the second half you already answered what comes the smaller label part, but the first half that's what I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
Like, the other half was about like smaller labels, which you already answered.
Definitely the way to go, in my opinion. I think that you're more likely to interact with people who are going to care about the artists because they don't want to
Promote.
Well, no, the smaller labels do want to promote. They want to promote people that they believe in. They don't have infinite resources to just keep signing people and say, "Oh, you're not making money, we're not renewing you." You know, like, and not put any effort behind making that band popular. And there are larger labels that do good work in that. You know, Relapse Records, I truly believe in. Epitaph has gone up and down over the years, but you know, hopefully more up than down. I consider Sargent House to probably be more of a you know, mainstream label than an indie label at this point because they have a lot of mainstream acts. And yeah, I it all depends, man. It all comes down to the writing on the page, right? I mean, the only time I've ever gotten offered a contract was by somebody who will remain nameless, and they kept telling us we were going to get one number. But we kept looking at that contract and he kept saying a different number. And he was like, "Oh, just sign it. We'll change it later." And I was like, that is not the way that contracts work, my friend. Like, I definitely know enough to know that. So yeah, that if I have any advice to bands that are blowing up and staring down the barrel of some type of contract, read the contract and then get a lawyer or lawyer family member to read the contract for you too. But yeah.
Probably makes me wonder now, like, when it comes to like newer bands, like, is there any like you that you enjoy these days?
There's a lot. Locally, definitely the two bands we're playing with tonight, Watts and Mace, are both incredible. Opposite ends of the spectrum in all like facets of the word. Watts are like young kids, like UCF students. A lot of members of another local band in Orlando called Zero Miles Per Hour, which is also really cool band, kind of up and coming kids. And then Mace is like a bunch of like Florida legends, like Florida, you know, people who are very involved in the scene. Like Heidi does like art direction for indies. She like sets up the art shows there, and Ava has always been around. And there's another really cool Scrams band that I got to see a couple weeks ago called Flowers for Emily. That is also local to Orlando, also young, really, really, really good. Like incredible band. Other than that, Jillian Carter. I always have to say Jillian Carter, the Orlando legends, my good friends. They aren't really new, but they're always new to me. They're always doing something cool, something fun. Other than that, I've been listening to a lot of like new hardcore. There's a lot of really cool just like national bands popping up lately. Spy has been probably like the biggest influence for me on Thrull, like vocally especially, but also just kind of from like a part rating perspective. I love the way that they like as a hardcore band are really chaotic. And then like kind of weird shit too, like, you know, Health and Perturbator and Author and Punisher and just kind of like weird industrial heavy stuff. And then again, like I'll zig back over to like chill, like, you know, late night vibe stuff like Sade and Portishead and that type of music. So yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. But like I said, man, I mean, there's so much talent in Central Florida and abroad, of course, but it's nice to get to watch a lot of this stuff happen. Like, I have no doubt in my mind that given the, the right resources and the right, ears, bands like Watts and Flowers for Emily could explode without question to me. They hit it,
It's definitely been very, since being here for a year, just seeing all that and actually getting more involved. Wouldn't say I'm fully immersed yet, because it's only been
Sure.
It's only been a
Well,
year.
dude, the best thing that you can do for yourself to keep abreast of everything that's going on, like I said, Marshall Rones, Peter Olin, just going on the Conduit and Will's Pub websites and seeing what shows are coming up. But those to me are two of the biggest like bottlenecks that everything that is in a lot of cases is worth listening to in Orlando comes through. You have other promoters around here who do a lot of really, really, really good work and bring through national artists that you're not going to get to see otherwise. But a lot of the time, the stuff that, like, if I'm looking for something to do, I'll find something worth doing just by looking at what they have going on that night. And that's really been a cool experience.